If you listen closely, you can hear the left's battle cry that America is being destroyed and democracy is being destroyed by white supremacy. Well, you can almost hear that narrative collapsing on itself. Of course, racism is still a problem, but the left also has a problem when it comes to racism. Not all racism flows from white people. But don't tell that to the New York Times or the Atlantic. They're trying hard to reframe the truth. Take, for example, a recent story about the Los Angeles City Council president and teachers unions getting caught on a hot mic. Before she resigned, City Council President Nury Martinez called one of her black colleagues' sons a monkey. They also included other racist tropes about Oaxacan Mexicans being ugly in that conversation. But the New York Times columnist Charles Blow went so far as to say that Nury Martinez, who is a Latina, saying this is what Blow said: white supremacy benefits those who are white, adjacent, both in appearance, culture, and effect. And here's more from Charles Blow in the New York Times. As the U.S. becomes less white, white supremacy could simply be replaced or rebuffeted by a form of light supremacy in which fairer-skinned people perpetuate a modified anti-blackness rather than emanating it. Translation: if you're not white, you can still be a white supremacist. Meanwhile, a writer from The Atlantic recently pounced on Ted Cruz for retweeting a meme made by one of our friends, Midnight Mitch. And it was a fake Atlantic headline that read, quote, "The evolution of white supremacy, how Muslim parents who oppose teaching pornography to kids are the new face of the far right." Apparently, Cruz didn't understand that it was a meme, so he deleted the retweet. But the whole reason that meme works is because it's believable, right? And apparently it hit too close to home for Atlantic writer Yair Rosenberg. He tweeted that Cruz needed to apologize and, quote, reflect on the reasons why he was so easily fooled by a hoax. Or we could just read National Review writer Nate Hochman, who wisely points out that ABC News also recently published a story under this headline, quote, "To understand China, you need to understand whiteness. Yet it's missing from the conversation." So, of course, the fake Atlantic headline was believable. Now, Hochman writes that Rosenberg, quote, uses Cruz's mistake to scoff at the very idea that anyone could believe such an absurd headline. And that's a tough position to hold, he says, when the New York Times is running headlines, you've probably seen these, like the rise of the far-right Latina. And we also see Washington Post political reporters tweeting takes like, "These days I'm often reminded, quote, how often you do not have to be white to support white supremacy." Let's welcome in now Nate Hochman. He joins us. He is a staff writer at the National Review. And Nate, great to have you with us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Good to be here.
You know, I love to read your stuff because it's easy to read. That helps me out. But it's also very smart at the same time. And you rightly pointed out that Senator Cruz should know better, and he made the right call by deleting that tweet. You know, he thought it was a serious headline. But can we really blame him? Because not too long ago, the Los Angeles Times had that headline, and it read, quote, "Larry Elder is the black face of white supremacy. You've been warned." So it's hard to blame Ted Cruz for getting this one wrong.
Right. I mean, look, this is how the internet and Twitter works. There are sort of fake hoaxes that go viral all the time, and otherwise intelligent people fall for them. And the right thing to do is to sort of delete the tweet and not boost it when you fall for it. But the reaction to Cruz boosting this headline was essentially that this is some sort of crazy example of irrational right-wing fear-mongering. And of course, the reason that a tweet like that goes viral is because you actually see headlines like it all the time. It was only a half click away from being totally believable, and you see headlines like it on an almost weekly basis now. It's pretty clear that the left doesn't actually mean white supremacy when they say white supremacy anymore. They just mean anything we don't like.
In addition to this, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a fake news outlet created by some other memers. They call it the Pacific, because the other fake Atlantic headlines that they were putting out were too real, and they kept getting kicked off of Twitter. But that's just where we are. And I think it reflects the hypersensitivity by the left anytime you even joke or mock them for their positions.
Well, you see this is the same thing happening with the multiple bans of the Babylon Bee, which, for viewers who don't know, it's this sort of Christian conservative-leaning humor website. And unlike The Onion, which is sort of a left-leaning humor website, they've been censored on Twitter multiple times because all of their headlines making fun of the left are often, they're meant as parody, but they're pretty believable because the left has sort of become a parody of itself on these issues. And it is insulting to people on the left when people actually call them out on it.
Oh, we celebrate the entire Babylon Bee catalog here on this program. We are well aware of that great publication. Let's also talk about the governor's race in Oregon, which is your home state. We got Nike founder Phil Knight basically declaring jihad on Democrats there. President Biden had to stop by and stump on behalf of Tina Kotek. Could we actually see Republican Christine Drazan win this thing?
Well, hey, this is still Oregon that we're talking about. So the Oregon Republican Party's broken my heart before because it is a deep blue state, but it sure looks like it. I mean, Christine Drazan, the Republican in the race, has led in the last 4 consecutive polls now. No one thought this was the kind of state that a Republican could ever win, at least in my lifetime. But the fact that Biden is out there actually campaigning, I don't think another Democratic president has had to come to help Democrats in the state of Oregon in my lifetime. I mean, this is sort of unprecedented. So it shows that not just Republicans are optimistic about this race, but Democrats know that they have to be worried for the first time in decades.
I think when President Obama visited all 57 states, he even missed Oregon. I don't know if I got the number right, but folks might get that. Some folks might get that joke. Also, as it relates to Oregon, CBS News recently did a story about the eastern part of the state wanting to secede from Oregon and join Idaho. They also focused on a lot of folks who are moving from Oregon to Idaho. Is that even a real possibility, or just something that is it wishful thinking for some of those Oregonians?
Well, look, my family lives out in one of those counties that has repeatedly voted to try to join Idaho. So I'm sympathetic. I understand why they feel like that. Culturally, politically, it's a deep red sort of Trump country part of the state, and they're ruled by people from Portland. So I understand why they want to join Idaho. I think that it would make much more sense for that part of the state to join a deep red state like Idaho. But it's, until we actually have Republican majorities in the state legislature, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon, it's probably not likely that, hippies in Portland are going to let them just secede like that.
Probably not. But those folks can wish and dream all they want and keep pursuing, because you never know what could happen. Nate Hochman, great to have you with us. We look forward to having you back. Everyone at home, make sure you're paying attention to the stuff that Nate is putting out. It's very intelligent and, like I said, easy to read, even for guys like me. Thanks so much, Nate.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Still ahead.
No crooked establishment.
None of that twisting the
truth.
No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax.
Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think.
They let
me decide.
Newsmax.
real news
For real people.